Who's in charge around here? Have you ever asked that question? Often it's asked when something's gone wrong, maybe at a shop or a restaurant, and you want to see the manager. Maybe in a situation which feels a little bit chaotic. But sometimes we might ask that to praise someone when something has gone well. Leadership, at whatever level, has an element of responsibility. Sometimes that comes with a particular role. In Baptist churches, deacons or elders are also trustees, and that brings a particular level of duty and certain legal expectations, which we'll come to. But whatever role we have, there will be implications if things are not done well. US President Eisenhower once said, "Leadership consists of nothing but taking responsibility for everything that goes wrong and giving your subordinates credit for everything that goes right." Sounds right to me. But before you press stop and want to give up, actually, there are many positives and blessings to this too. Serving in leadership in any way can stretch us, helping us to grow in faith and in our walk with God. And it often proves to be extremely rewarding. Responsibility is an inherent part of leadership. Maybe that's why it can feel daunting when we step into a new role. All layers of leadership in a church are about helping the church to fulfill its mission. But the good news, it's something that we do together. As the Apostle Paul would put it, no one part of the body works on its own. And the church belongs to Jesus as the head. We're about his work in his power through the Holy Spirit. As we explore in another core module, the final responsibility in a Baptist church belongs to the whole church body, expressed through the church meeting. But those serving as leaders usually have specific areas, events or tasks that they're taking a lead on and therefore are responsible for. For example, leading the welcome team or the tech team on a Sunday, or running a men's event or small group or summer holiday club. Then there are layers of leaders who take a wider overview, such as coordinators, deacons or elders, or whatever name you like to give the leadership in your church. These will work with the minister if your church has one. John Adair suggests most organisations have 3 levels of leadership with varying degrees of responsibility. There is the team level, the operational level, and the strategic level. And we can see that dynamic in many churches where the minister and deacons work at the vision and strategic leadership, which is then worked out through operational leaders and then teams who work on the ground, do the actual delivery. But whatever your role, it's important that we take our responsibility seriously because we're serving God. And you really can tell the difference between a team serving wholeheartedly with passion and those reluctantly filling a gap on the rota. Maybe you can think of times when you've seen or experienced that, either from the outside or with a team that you've been part of. This might be a good moment to pause and to think about how you feel about taking responsibility. Think about what different areas of your church you can think of where someone has to take a lead. How does it work in your setting? A good question to ask when taking on any role in the church is, how does my part fit with the wider structure? As we said earlier, some roles are about serving in a team and doing your job well. Other roles are about coordinating teams or events, bringing a greater degree of leadership and carrying responsibility. While others have a wider view and overall responsibility. A helpful perspective in any serving role in the church is to keep the big picture in view. How does my part contribute to the overall vision and mission of the church? How does this area of serving help people see and experience the love of God? That perspective of the bigger picture can also help us resist what might be called my little kingdom mentality. This is where someone leads on a particular area of church life and after a while becomes so connected to it that it can feel threatening if the church wants to change approach or other people want to get involved. And it can be more common than you might imagine. For example, if you're responsible for the church flowers and have been for many years, arranging them on a Saturday morning, and the church now wants to run a dad's group on a Saturday morning, that can lead to uncomfortable conversations. We'll cover this in another session in this series on working well together. But keeping the big picture in mind can be of a great help here. Any leadership in the church is not about a role becoming our identity, but about us using our gifts and our time for God's purposes. If you have a role in your church or are considering taking up a leadership role, do you know how that connects to the wider structures and the wider leadership? Churches in the UK are also classed as charities, whether they are registered or not. This means that there are expectations around what is known as governance. Christian support organisations' stewardship define governance this way. In its simplest form, governance is about authority, decision-making and accountability. Essentially, it's about how the organisation is run. Good governance enables the church to fulfill its mission well. Governance covers policies and procedures, how decisions are made and who makes them, as well as controls and expectations around finance. This also means that there are particular leadership roles that need to be in place. In many churches, these roles, known as trustees, will also be the deacons or the elders of the church. They're those who have the overview and make key decisions. Charity trustees are defined as the people responsible for controlling the management and administration of the charity. Because being a trustee carries certain legal and financial implications, there are restrictions on who can and who cannot serve in this way. Details of this can be found from the Charity Commission and also through what is called the Fit and Proper Persons Test from the HMRC. Baptists Together also have resources for our churches that will help them with this. Trustee requirements don't replace the biblical instructions around who should serve in our churches and the need for prayer and faithfulness, but also sit alongside to make sure these things are done well and legally. The Charity Commission have identified 6 key areas trustees are responsible for: delivering purpose, managing conflicts of interest, reporting information, safeguarding people, making decisions, and finally, managing finance. Again, there are resources from Baptists Together and the Charity Commission which can help explain these further if you are not sure. Underpinning all of this will be some key governing documents for your church. These might include a constitution and in some cases trust paperwork and church rules. And these can vary from church to church, but finding out about the governing documents is important for anyone serving as a trustee. And these things may sound complicated and far removed from the ministry of worship and sharing the gospel, but the reality is that without good governance, things can soon fall apart. It's been said that good governance sets a tone for an organisation. By promoting a reputation for good governance, a Christian organisation prioritises the reputation of the gospel. As well as the governing documents which underpin how your church operates, good governance also takes us into the world of policies and procedures. For many of us, these things may not sound very exciting, and I understand that. Church administration consultant John Truscott defines these things in this way. A policy is a statement that provides information on authority required, boundaries set, and responsibilities delegated. It states what the church believes and how it acts with reasons and any conditions. It lays down requirements, sometimes guidelines, for what is to be done. A procedure explains how the policy is put into effect in practice. It may include a step-by-step list of actions and ensures that the policy is followed. It enables action. Examples of policies churches should have in place can include a safeguarding policy for children and vulnerable adults, a data protection policy, a health and safety policy. Many churches will include other policies as well. And once again, Baptist Together website has lots of helpful information, as does the Baptist Insurance Company website and other organisations. Like everything under governance, policies are not meant to get in the way of mission and the ministry of the church, but rather to ensure that things are done safely and well. What might seem like common sense to you and me may not be so obvious to someone else. Remember, good governance supports the mission of your church, and it's often in the background and should be. I once heard it said that regional ministers are largely irrelevant until they're needed. Well, it's the same with good governance. It may not seem to matter until there is an issue, but then it really matters. Good governance is like a reassuring handrail rather than a pair of uncomfortable handcuffs. Serving in leadership in a church is a privilege and a blessing. It'll help strengthen and stretch your faith. But as we've been thinking about here, it's also a responsibility. It is our prayer that we do things well, not just to tick a box or meet someone else's criteria, but so that our churches are healthy, growing, and functioning well, in order that God is glorified and we see His kingdom come on earth as in heaven.